If you'd like to talk to Racquel after the show, call 614-886-7780. 886-7780. Now, once again, here's Racquel.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Racquel Ludaway, and you're listening to the Racquel Ludaway Show on 98.9 FM, The Answer. And I'm here talking with Michael Isaacs and Adam Neft of First Choice Loan Services, and we are discussing buying versus renting. And before the break, we talked about a lot of things, and more in particular, we talked about the affordability index, who can actually afford to buy a home, and we talked a little bit about that. And Michael, you were talking a little bit about, just the prices of homes right now, where you think they are going.
Yeah, exactly, Racquel. Thanks. So when we look at, again, purchasing versus renting, we really look at three different things. We look at the affordability index, which we just discussed. We also look at the cost of waiting, and we look at return on investment, because buying a house is an investment. It's somewhere you're going to live. It's all about your family and quality of life. But you should look at your house as an investment as well. So we look at all three of those things. So when it comes to the cost of waiting, one of the things that we look at is we look at appreciation. So in other words, what is it going to cost you to buy a house 5 years from now versus buying a house today? So we looked up some of the statistics on Zillow. In the United States today, over the past year, home values have gone up 6.4%. And Zillow predicts they'll go up another 2.4% in the next year. Here in Central Ohio, in Westerville, for instance, the median home value is $165,000, and home values have gone up 4.2% over the past year. That's a considerable amount, and if it were to continue at that rate, buying a home 5 years from now would be considerably more expensive than buying a house today when you consider the increased price and the increased interest rate. And remember, we talked a little bit about the affordability index, and how that determines somebody's ability to be able to afford a home. And it takes two things into account, right? The home value, or the price you pay for a home, as well as the interest rate. Well, if both of those things are increasing, the amount of home that you can afford 5 years from now is going to be much lower than the amount of house you can afford today. Right. And so, we think that, again, buying today is considerably better than waiting 4 or 5 years to buy a home.
Right. And I would agree, because right now when you look at the prices to rent versus to buy, like I said earlier, right now if you can rent a 1 bedroom or maybe a 2 bedroom for close to $900, right now you can get a really nice house for that. But as the home prices continue to rise, or if it goes anywhere near where it used to be before the bubble burst, you won't be able to afford it, the same type of home as you can right now. So that affordability, when home prices are high, then it makes more sense to rent, because it's more affordable to do that. But right now, it's more affordable to buy.
And when we talk to people about buying a house, there's really 5 main benefits that we try to hit on. And you can remember this. It's PCTTI, right? Say it with me, PCTTI. And the P is a comfortable monthly payment. We want to make sure someone buying a house gets into a home that they love, obviously, and that's your part of the equation, right, as a realtor. But we want to make sure they can afford the monthly payment. Inevitably, the taxes are going to go up at some point. Their insurance may go up. The sink may leak, right? Anyone who owns a home knows that. In addition to that, we want to see any cash needs after closing. Everyone who's ever moved into a house, moved into an apartment, wherever they've lived, you want to do something. Put in new furniture, fix something up, whatever. There's tax benefit to owning a home, and we like to explain to you, you're in this tax bracket, you're going to pay this much in interest over the life of the loan, over the year of the loan. Here's how much you'll see at tax time. The next T is for the term. We offer a bunch of different terms. So if you're planning on leaving Columbus, hopefully you're not, but if you're planning on leaving Columbus in a few years, maybe look at something longer where the payment's lower if you're looking to pay the house off sooner. And finally, as Mike mentioned, is I for the investment. Just personal anecdote, I bought my house in Berwick in 2011 for $170,000. I refinanced back in July. It was worth $210,000. What did I do? I took out some cash and bought a new car. I basically didn't have to, and my payment went up $300 a month. What's a car payment? $350 a month, right? So I got a brand new car basically for free, essentially.
Right.
So it is a good investment, and I think sometimes you just have to see what kind of investment it could be for you.
That's really good. And you mentioned something that you took some money out. You have more flexibility. You have more options that are available to you when you do have a home. That's something that's a key point. I know when I first purchased my home, and I got a new build. And I used some of the equity in my home to finish my basement. Mm-hmm. And then I was able to run a business at that particular time in my basement. So that brought even more money. So it just gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of what you can actually do in the home versus when you're in someone else's home and you're paying their mortgage and you can't do anything to that home without their permission, without their their guidance. So you're pretty much at their beck and call.
Well, and if you think about it, if you purchase a $200,000 house today and put 5% down, that's $10,000. You're paying $10,000 for a $200,000 investment, right? There's nowhere else you could do that. If you want to invest in the stock market, if you want to invest in a bond or an IRA or something, if you want a $200,000 investment, you better have $200,000 to invest, right? If you went to a stockbroker and said, hey, I got $10,000, but I want $200,000 worth of Microsoft stock, they're probably going to look at you like, you seem like a nice person, but something maybe not so right?
Right.
But then it appreciates based on that $200,000 value. So you have that kind of built-in equity right there for you, which is one of the really nice advantages to owning versus renting, because even if the building appreciates when you're renting, you don't see that benefit.
I think people have probably gotten a little nervous and a little scared because they've seen what has happened over the past several years where, we've always assumed that the homes are going to appreciate. And recently when the homes have not appreciated, that, you can't really use that argument, you know what I mean, that the homes are going to appreciate. So I think that's been one of the things that has probably held people back. But there's so many other benefits for owning a home, instead of just the appreciation. Although we know that over time, and it's the same thing with the stock market, because the stock market will go up and it will go down. Mm-hmm. You might lose money one particular year, but overall, you're going to make more money in the stock market.
And it's a valid point. People should be concerned, right? It's a very valid concern they have. And if the only reason you're buying a house is simply to flip it and turn a profit, that's not really the business I necessarily work in. Right? So I don't really deal with a lot of people wanting to buy properties and 90, 120 days later flip them. Like I said, there's 5 benefits to buying a home. The investment is one of the big benefits, but you really have to think about the entire picture. More than likely, the house is going to appreciate, but nobody can predict the market. So like any investment, there's got to be a little bit of risk involved.
Right. So what do you guys think? I mean, we've heard over the, several years, interest rates are going up, they're going up. I mean, do you really think they are going up?
So I remember back in 2011, the smartest people on Wall Street were predicting that interest rates would be up 2 or 3% within the next year. And like you said earlier, they continued to drop. So there is a lot of skepticism as to whether or not rates will go up. I think it's a lot different this time. If you look at all of the technical analysis, everything would suggest that interest rates are going to start to increase. Whether you look at the housing market, you look at unemployment rates, you look at all the other factors that the Fed is looking at, you can see that the Fed has already started the process of unwinding quantitative easing. So in other words, years ago, the Fed decided to start creating liquidity in the bond market by buying treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. That created liquidity that helped bring interest rates down and helped fuel the growth of the economy. They've stopped buying treasuries. They've stopped buying mortgage-backed securities. That was sort of step one. So I think that all the indicators are there today that would suggest that interest rates are going up. However, let's say, I'm not a prognosticator, right? You said that earlier. Adam said that. We can't predict whether interest rates are going to go up or down. Again, the smartest people got it wrong in 2011. But whether it's the stock market, the bond market, whether it's interest rates or something else, one of the things that I tell people and I look at in my own life is the upside versus downside risk. In other words, what are the chances that interest rates are going to go down? And if they do, how far down are they going to go? I think we would all agree at this point that it's unlikely they're going to go down. And if they do, maybe you're going to catch 1/8 of a point, maybe 1/4 of a point, which isn't going to make much of a difference in your monthly payment. On the flip side, if interest rates do start going up, how high could they go? I think a lot of people would agree that interest rates could go up 1%, 2%, 3%. We could see interest rates at 6 or 7% in the next couple of years, which would make a huge, dramatic difference in the amount of house that you could afford. So when you look at the potential downside versus upside scenario,
We'll take a break and we'll be right back after the break.